So now we're going to talk about long-term environmental change and its impact on heritage. And so we have to think about not only what happens in the future, but we must reflect on the long-term change in the past, as this will give us some clues about the future. We can imagine 1500 years ago in the Mediterranean, there was long-term change in terms of the Bronze Age collapse of civilization. It's particularly noted in wars within Egypt or in the collapse of the Mycenaean civilizations of Crete and southern Greece. How did these changes come about? Well, some people think it was volcanoes. Volcanoes caused a dimming of the sun, so crops failed and there were famines under Ramses III. Another possibility is that the Mediterranean region became much drier. And if we look at this diagram on the left of the screen, the very top line shows the long-term precipitation over many thousands of years. And what we see is a gradual decline into the period of 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And this is a particular driver of this Bronze Age collapse. However, by the time the Romans arrived, then the climate had improved a little bit, and so the Romans were of course able to use the southern Mediterranean coastline to grow wheat, for example, and to feed the bread making of Rome. These long-term historic changes now are shown in this diagram, which sort of treats the Atlantic region, the North Atlantic region of the globe. And what we can see is a number of things taking place over time. For example, in Roman times, it was very warm. This was followed by a Dark Age, which was somewhat cooler, and then the medieval optimum period, a warm period that we'll have to come back to. Then we progress into the Little Ice Age, a very cold period in Europe, and then finally the warming of the modern period. In the medieval warm period, the Vikings managed to explore the very northern regions of the Atlantic Ocean. So they were able to colonize Greenland, they were able to sail all the way to North America and build small settlements in Canada, for example. And what you can see is, in this graph at the bottom, you see these long-term temperature changes. You can see how the Vikings moved at a very optimum period to travel across the North Atlantic. Whereas after that period where they're able to do this, it became much colder, and so we had a Europe that was subject to much more frosts and much lower temperatures. This particular civilization, the Atlantic Viking civilization, established a wide range of different little communities across Greenland and Canada, and what we see here is a very famous one on Newfoundland.